The Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the 10th chapter. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came forward to him and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." And he said to them, "What is it you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory." But Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with?" They replied, "We are able." Then Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you will drink, and with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared." When the 10 heard of this, they began to be angry with James and John. So Jesus called them and said to them, "You know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. But it is not so among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." This is the gospel of the Lord, and you may be seated. So I got a great quote for you. So here we go, a reflection on today's text. And you can, the trivia question will be, who gave this quote? Who gave this sermon? So here we go. And so Jesus gave us a new norm of greatness. If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. And this morning, the thing I like about it, by giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great, because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love, and you can be that servant. Does anybody know who gave that quote in a sermon? Any ideas? So a guy named Martin Luther King Jr. Gave that quote. It's part of a sermon he wrote called "The Drum Major Instinct." That is a reflection on our gospel that we have for today. And more specifically, it's a reflection on the part in the gospel where it says, "Whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant." And it's an amazing sermon. You can listen to it online and read the text of it as well. So I've been thinking about our gospel that we have for today and thinking about this quote from Martin Luther King Jr.'s sermon. And the gospel text and King's sermon really became alive for me this week. It's kind of like my sermon was written for me this week. At least my part of the sermon. We'll have Mark Hendrickson coming up here in just a minute. So on Wednesday, we had a visitor at our church, and he was just on the south side of the church over here. We had a big rainstorm that washed a lot of the rocks down, all the rocks along the side of the sanctuary. And there's a brick border along the sidewalk, and all of those bricks went down. And so this man, about my age, was biking by, and he started to painstakingly put all of those bricks back, one by one, one by one. And he took all of the rocks that spilled out onto the sidewalk, and he was throwing them back to their place there on the side of the church. And I stopped him, and I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he said, "Hey, I'm just here to serve. I'm just here to serve. I was biking by, and I saw that you needed your bricks put back, and I just wanted to stop and do it for you. I'm not expecting anything. I just want to serve. That was his mantra throughout our conversation together. And as I got to talking to this guy, I learned that he had a really hard life. He had been in and out of prison for drug-related offenses, been in and out of treatment, and he said, I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick of being worthless. And I decided that I just need to start serving. Because when I serve, then my soul feels its worth. And he said, I've been trying to serve in all sorts of different ways. I saw that you needed some help here, so I just stopped to serve. And then we got to talking and learned that his parents had died recently. A stepfather also had passed away. Had this really tired life, a hard life. And he was just trying to make his life better again. And so he was doing all of these acts of service. So then I tried to give him some money. I had $20 in my pocket, and I said, please take this. You need it more than I do. He said, no, I don't want your money. And then I started to argue with him. Well, kind of argue with him. I said, no, just take it. And he said, okay, you know, I do need money, but I just want to make it clear. I didn't do this to earn any money, okay? I said, hey, that's okay. Just take it. Okay, I will. And then I joined him, and we finished up the work, and you can look after worship. It looks pretty nice over there. And he just biked off, and I said, hey, stop by again sometime. He said, yeah, I might do that. So that story really made the gospel, that experience really made the gospel come alive for me. And this past week, I've been looking for acts of service, both here at our church, but also in our community and world. And it's amazing when you start to look at life through that lens where you see service. Just all of the amazing people, all of the good people that we have in our world. On the news, you see all these horrible stories, but there's a lot of good stories out there as well. So I encourage you to look through that lens this week where you are seeing acts of service, where you're seeing those great people among us. And I'd love to hear your service stories. And I've seen all sorts of stories around our church. And I want to say thank you for all of the ways that I see all of you serving Christ the King through the giving of your time, talents, and treasures. And how all of you serve our community and country and world. It's absolutely incredible. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Mark Hendrickson, who is the vice president of our congregation, an absolutely amazing man. And he's going to tell you more stories of service and discipleship. And this is a man that serves his family and serves his church and world and also his occupation. And he's a very good golfer as well. I went golfing with him a few weeks ago, and he really was a good golfer. Needless to say, I lost by a lot. So take it away, Mark.
Thank you, Pastor Aaron. Can everyone hear me all right? We're good that way? Okay. You know, I was asked to present today to the congregation, and I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about or where I was going to talk from or what was going to work, but I was given one piece of advice from my wife, Ginger, and that piece of advice was, don't embarrass me. Whatever you do, don't embarrass me today. So, with that said, I'm going to walk over here and introduce my family. It's my oldest son, Matthew, my mother-in-law, Judy, my middle son, Noah, my youngest son, Jacob, and my wife, Ginger. So we got to do one thing on the count of three, okay? We're going to say hi to Ginger. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hi, Ginger. There, we got that out of the way. The hard part of this thing is what you don't know, though, is there'll be a toothbrush in the bathroom waiting for me at home to clean that bathroom because of what I've just done, okay? Anyways, it's great to be here. It's great to be back in the community. We moved back a couple years ago, and I'm going to explain, you know, how Ginger and I met and how our faith has transpired together along with our kids. But I want to start out by talking about Ginger and I can't remember if we were going to the grocery store to get groceries or if we were running a kid to a sporting activity or what, but we were listening to AM radio, if you can believe that or not. And we were listening to a faith-based talk show. And something came up during that talk show that just stuck with me. And Pastor Aaron and I had lunch this week, and I shared it with him, and I didn't know how much I could push the envelope, but I want to make you people aware of something that's happening, and it'll lead into what I'm going to talk about today. There was an individual. He was very comical when he was talking, and Ginger and I were laughing in the car and sitting in a parking lot. And I'm sure people thought we were crazy or something, but we were just having a good old time. And this individual, after he told a bunch of jokes, stopped and he said, in all seriousness, he said, society has changed to be consumers instead of disciples. And I thought that was profound, a profound statement that he said that. Society has changed a little. And that leads into what I want to talk about with you folks today, with the church, okay? I grew up in a very good home. My parents were very active in our church growing up. I grew up in Warroad, Minnesota. Does everyone know where that's at? Some, right? And then, that the leadership of that church and my parents teaching me at home about God and faith and stuff brought me to a point when I graduated from high school. I decided that Concordia College, obviously a good Lutheran school, was where I wanted to go. So I continued my faith walk at Concordia College. While at Concordia College, I was absolutely blessed to meet my wife, Ginger. And Ginger grew up in Moorhead here, and she was born and raised through this church. She was confirmed here. And eventually, Ginger and I were married in this church. And we talk a lot as a family about our faith. And one thing that comes up that I'm not sure, I didn't ask her permission for this, but I need to share this with you. Ginger grew up, for the most part, in a single family home with her mother, and her mother had to work 6 days a week. And she worked 2 jobs. And Ginger has said this countless times to me. She said, Mark, I do not know if I'd be where I am today if it wasn't for Christ the King, the youth organization, the people in this church, okay? And that sticks with me. That says a lot about this congregation, its leadership, its council, etc. So, with that said, we got married here. In fact, it was Pastor Paul's last wedding. Remember when Pastor Paul was here? Pastor Matt took over like that next day, that Sunday, was his first Sunday in church. So it was kind of a crazy time around Christ the King. We ended up getting married due to professional reasons. We moved away for several years. And about two to 3 years ago, we had the opportunity to move back here. And Pastor Aaron and I talked about this at lunch. When we moved back here, Ginger and I felt we deserved to give the churches in the area a chance. So we went and visited several different churches in the area. The last church we stopped at, folks, was here. And I will never forget walking through those doors, hanging a right, heading down that hall. And when I walked into Christus Rex, I couldn't stop it. There was a tear that rolled down my eye. And Ginger looked at me and she said, "We're home, aren't we?" And I said, "We are home." Things have come, things have changed, things have gone, but what stays constant is the building, obviously, and just the ambiance of what's created by the parishioners, the leadership group of our congregation has not changed. It was a hard time. My oldest son was going to be a junior in high school. My middle son was going to be a freshman, and Jake was going to be in 5th grade. And when you move a family from one community to another, there's challenges with that. How did we overcome those challenges as a family? We leaned on you folks and this church to help us through. I remember Pastor Kathy back distinctly talking in a sermon once about how some people would go to church twice in a week. And she was speaking about us because she talked to me about it after. And it's not because we're bad people. It's because there was something consistent in a time of transition. It was followed up also with, during the two years we had moved back here, my mother passed away. Ginger's uncle had passed away. There had been a lot going on, but what stayed the same was Christ the King. And there's huge importance, folks, in my opinion, to being disciples in faith versus being consumers, okay? There's a huge difference there. And I heard a quote once that I want to share with you, that another thing that just sticks with me. It's not the years in your life, it's the life in those years you live that's important. And we, as all of you, choose to be disciples in faith. And I commend you and I applaud you for that. And no matter what area you give to the church, whether it be your time, your talents, stewardship, it doesn't matter. As far as I'm concerned, this is our home. This is our second home. Every one of us, we're a family. And that means a lot to us personally, the Hendricksons. I appreciate your time. One more thing I was going to end in song today, but I'm not going to do that. I ran that by Ginger, and I won't doubly embarrass her in one day. Okay? She brought up a great idea, and I want to share with you. She said, why don't you ask each one of us in our family what Christ the King means to us? So I did that. We did that at supper last night. We had great spaghetti dinner. Awesome. My wife cooked it. And that's the other thing, is we as a family try and once a week, even with our busy schedules, twice, 3 times if we're lucky, that discipleshipness, that family, we try to have a meal as a family, and we pray before that meal, and we eat. And last night, our discussion was about what the church meant to everyone. And I want to read what each one of my sons and my wife said, and I'll share what Christ the King means to me as well. My middle son, Noah, spoke up first, and he said, church means family, support, and acceptance. Then Matthew, my oldest son, spoke up, and he said, church is a place of fellowship and acceptance. Then Jacob said, church to him is a place of trust, forgiveness, and acceptance. And my wife says, Ginger says, church is a place of comfort, peace, and family. And for me, church is a place of family, fellowship, friendship, forgiveness. Because this is our home. This is where we can learn to be better disciples and carry that out into our everyday lives. As Ginger and I have chosen to do, we try not to be consumers. We try to be disciples. Thank you.